Fantastic. Welcome along, everyone, to today's online global BTRM information session for the Certificate of Bank Treasury Risk Management. My name's Jeff Brown, and I've been involved very heavily and sometimes intensely with these kind of programs for over 2 decades, including the likes of, including the CFA, the FRM, KIA, the CQF, BTRM, MLI, QDC, and lots more. And I have to say, the BTRM, of all the programs that I've been responsible for, the BTRM, which I joined a couple of years ago, is, I genuinely think, as far as practical application is concerned, in a league of its own. And I think you'll get a flavor of that during the course of this presentation. It is incredibly practical. So for those of you working in Treasury, ALM, liquidity risk, balance sheet management, this is the most applied program in finance that I know. And I'll give you, well, not just me, but also Edward Bass, my colleague who's a member of the BTRM faculty, will give you hopefully a strong flavour as to why that is, and why the original founding members of the BTRM decided to make this as practical as it can possibly be. Okay, so let's move on. So these are the topics that we're going to take you through during the next half hour to 3/4 of an hour, and we'll finish off with a Q&A session as well. We'll try and keep the questions for the end of the presentation, but if you've got questions during the presentation which pop up as we're talking about the program, then obviously feel free to ask those questions in the chat. And we will try to remind ourselves to look at the chat in order to answer those questions as we go along. So the topics we're going to take you through: what is the BTRM? What actually is it? What does it consist of? And why is it beneficial? How is it beneficial to you? That's the most important part of this presentation. We'll take you through the history and evolution of the BTRM. We'll talk about, in some detail, the BTRM faculty, the candidate profiles, the BTRM journey, which literally starts now, starts today, in terms of acquiring as much information as you can about the program. We'll break down in some detail the syllabus of the program. We'll talk about the BTRM certificate, who accredits the BTRM, and the testimonials of the program. We'll also talk about the BTRM alumni contacts, the study partner program for those of you who like to have a study buddy during this kind of pretty intense 6-month program. And we'll talk also about the help desk, which is officially known as the BTRM Forum. So what is the BTRM? It's asset liability, otherwise known as ALM, as I'm sure you all know, is a core discipline in banking. This is really one of the primary focuses of this program, and it's a discipline as old as banking itself. It's a 6-month part-time program. It is specifically really for those working in banks in this space, but it's also for those working we have a lot of people working in the consultancies like EY and PwC. They come on this program as well if they're working with fund pricing, for example. Those working in every aspect of bank balance sheet risk management and ALM, well, this is the program for you then. It is completely practitioner-led, developed, and orientated. Although there are some academics on the program as well, but they are academics who have had a substantial banking background. And there are, as I notice, a couple of faculty members actually watching as we speak. I'll also talk about them in a little bit more detail in terms of their backgrounds, and you'll see even if they are working at universities, very prestigious universities, the bulk of their career has been involved in banking. The emphasis, as I say, is on practical relevance and equipping students with the tools and techniques they can apply to good effect in their day job. That's the most important thing about this program. Some of the other qualifications that I mentioned, the CFA, the CQF, the FRM, they're amazing programs, but they're not necessarily as practically applicable to your day job. The CFA, for example, is an incredible program, very broad range of topics, accounts, ethics, regulations, some quant finance in there as well. But they're not. It's not necessarily made for quite a few positions in the financial market sector. If you're working in equity research, it's going to be incredibly relevant for you. There are other positions where it's not going to be so relevant. Similar with the BTRM. If you're working in equity research, the BTRM is not going to be so relevant for you. But if you're working within Treasury, just broadly speaking, ALM, Treasury, bank balance sheet management, not only is this very relevant for you, but it's extremely practical and useful for you. It's unique as the only global professional qualification exclusively for bank, treasury, finance, and risk professionals. So it was devised by Professor Moorad Choudhry, who I'm sure you all know. He's world-renowned. He's written a phenomenal book called The Principles of Banking, which is a bestseller. He is, in fact, I'll explain a little bit about his background. So he's headed up treasury departments at JP Morgan, RBS, Europe Arab Bank, KBC. He's been a consultant to many global institutions. As I said, he's the best-selling author of The Principles of Banking, amongst others. He's a fellow of the Chartered Institute for Securities and Investment, a fellow of the London Institute of Banking and Finance, a fellow of the Global Association of Risk Professionals, a fellow of the Institute of Directors, and a freeman of the Worshipful Company of International Bankers. So he's got it all, and he's extremely experienced, and he basically decided to put in place a program that he thought was filling a gap in the marketplace, which is as applied a program as possible. It's been running for 10.5 years. The first cohort took place in May 2014. We celebrated our 10th anniversary last year with BTRM alumni and faculty and various important people. It was incredible fun, I have to say. And we are now in cohort 20, which started in October, and cohort 21, which is what you'll be interested in, begins on the 9th of April. So these are the benefits of the BTRM program. It is a graduate level professional qualification. It's genuinely internationally renowned. We've got not only faculty from all over the world, from North America, South America, Europe, Africa, Asia, Middle East as well. But we also have, and I'll talk about the candidate profiles shortly, we've got people taking this from all over the world. It's a 6-month part-time program delivered twice yearly. April the 9th is the next cohort, and then normally the first week of October. So every year, 2 cohorts. The lectures are streamed live over the internet and recorded, as is the case with many programs nowadays. They are viewable anytime from anywhere. If you miss a lecture, then you can view a recording of that lecture. The learning is of practical value. It's developed and taught by practitioners for practitioners. The emphasis on by practitioners and for practitioners. It's a world-renowned faculty, which I'll take you through in a second, and we're specialists in bank balance sheet risk management. The faculty are specialists in bank balance sheet risk management. Alumni benefit from continuous education and expanding professional development program. You have access to all the materials, all the webinars and materials in perpetuity. What that means is that once you're enrolled onto the program, you have access to all future BTRM programs. So there are syllabus updates usually every 6 months. You have access to all the new syllabus updates as well. We can also point you in the direction of a specific update if you don't want to watch an entire cohort once again. Also, we run webinars almost every month. They are very, very relevant. Any topical events or news stories, we tend to pick up and run webinars on those events. They're extremely well attended. You have access to all of those, not only all past webinars, but also all future webinars. And they are, once you've submitted the fee for enrollment, there is no additional cost for the rest of your careers. Okay, so all the additional content that's added in the years to come, there won't be any additional cost for you. So we are accredited. This is the BTRM Partner and Awarding Body, the University of Applied Sciences and Arts in Switzerland. It's an incredible organization. There is specific reasons why we decided to partner with them. They've got a very similar philosophy to ourselves in terms of being very practical themselves. They've got over 150 partner universities worldwide. They're a member of the AACSB as well, the Association to Advance Collegiate Schools of Business. Incidentally, we've got lightning and storms happening at the moment, so sincere apologies if there's an electricity cut. I hope there won't be, but in any case, it's quite entertaining. Hopefully you can't hear it. So yeah, they're an amazing partner to work with. They're not the only partner that we work with. I'll explain, I'll talk about the other partners we work with in due course. We do have an extraordinary faculty, a world-renowned faculty. With us is Dr. Edward Bass, who is the Deputy Head of Faculty. He is a finance professional specializing in credit and liquidity risk. He's an advisor to the Chartered Institute for Securities and Investment. He's been a banking and credit risk professional for many years in New York and London, and he's served as head of education for the CFA Institute in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. He serves on academic editorial panels for the CISI and the IISES, and on Premier's Ethics and Professional Standards Committee. He's a University of Michigan PhD and New York University Business School MBA. He's a CFA and a charter member of the CISI. And he also lectures at Middlesex University Business School's Accounting and Finance Department, teaching graduate and undergraduate finance, banking, and economics programs. He's got an immense amount of experience, which is why he was chosen as the Deputy Head of Faculty for the BTRM. Head of Faculty is Chris Westcott. He's got over 30 years of experience in the banking industry, with a majority of time spent in the field of Treasury management. He's held a range of senior positions in Treasury functions, including divisional Treasury roles and various project assignments. In the lead up to the implementation of CRO4, Chris was the Basel III Program Director, accountable for overseeing the group-wide set of projects to achieve compliance with new regulations. We've got Jill Satina, who's with us today as well. Jill has held some of the world's most senior positions at the Federal Reserve Board, a financial economist in debt management at the US Treasury Department, and at the Office of the Controller of the Currency. She co-chaired the Basel Research Task Force on Liquidity and Solvency Interactions. She's also worked as Associate Managing Director for US Bank Ratings at Moody's Investor Service. And she's an Executive Professor of Finance and Associate Director of the Commercial Banking Program at Texas A&M University. Jill, welcome. Peter Eisenhard is Secretary General of the International Council of Securities Associations. He's worked in Treasury, money market trading, bond options trading, repo, credit and debt origination in New York, London and Tokyo for over a 30-year career at Bank of America Merrill Lynch and JP Morgan. He was voted by industry peers to Euroweek's Dream Team of the Global Capital Markets. He's also a past chairman of the International Capital Markets Association. I'm not going to take you through all of the faculty members, by the way, because that will take a long time, but I will take you through some of them. Professor Jessica James is a senior quant researcher at Commerzbank in London. Prior to this, she was global head of the Quant Investor Solutions Group at Citi. She holds a BSc in physics from Manchester University and is a DPhil in atomic and nuclear physics from Oxford University. Professor James is author of Handbook of Foreign Exchange, Interest Rate Modelling, Currency Management, and Random Walks in Fixed Income and Foreign Exchange. Silke Waterstraat is a lecturer at the Institute of Finance, University of Applied Sciences, Northwestern Switzerland. She spent 16 years in Treasury and portfolio management roles at UBS and other major global corporate institutions. Since 2018, she's been a non-executive director on different boards, mainly in the area of finance and education. She holds a PhD in business administration and is a certified international investment analyst charter holder. Okay. So here's a snapshot of enrollments since the BTRM started 10.5 years ago. We had, to begin with, 109 students. It very quickly jumped to 170, then 191. Even during the COVID period, it grew to over 220 students. Cohort 20 is currently underway. It started in October 2024. The students that have registered already for the program beginning on the 9th of April at this time is 3 times as many as any year at this time for the April cohort. So I think that word has spread significantly, especially over the last couple of years. And there's an awful lot of people now enrolling onto this program from all over the world. As I suggested, it's a global community that students have come from over 60 countries worldwide. We have students from North America, South America, many different areas of Africa, all over Europe, the UK, across Asia, India, and Australia. These are some of the employing institutions for candidates. We've got pretty much all the major investment banks and other banks who either send their employees onto the program. We've got preferred supplier agreements with many different banks across the world, international banks, global banks, and these are some of the names of employing institutions either sending their delegates on the programs or from whom delegates just choose to come onto the BTRM. Okay, so where does the BTRM journey start? It starts right now with this information session. And this is really an information gathering exercise. This is the whole objective, is really to be to give you a strong flavor of what the BTRM program is about. Ed Base is going to take you through the syllabus in detail very shortly. So this is where we discuss course details. This session is also being recorded. So for anybody who wants to watch the recording again in order to make sure that you're making the right decision, then you're more than welcome to do that. My email address is jeff@btrm.org, okay, or jeff@wbstraining.com. So feel free to send me an email with any questions that you have. So as I say, this is really the opportunity to gather as much information as you possibly can. Compare the BTRM with the very few other programs that there are on this topic area, so that you can make an informed decision as to which program is going to be the most useful program for you. Once you've made a decision, if you do decide to enroll onto the BTRM, you can you can send me an email asking for a registration form. There are certain regional discounts as well, so feel free to ask me whether your region is included in amongst regional discounts. There is currently a 15% discount across the board. 15% discount. The standard fee is £8,450. So it's reduced to £7,182.50. And there are various different payment options as well. Okay, so you can either submit the full fee in one installment, or you can submit the fee in 2 installments, 50% each. So one installment now, and then the other installment, I believe, in June, but I would need to double check that. You can also submit the payment in 3 installments, beginning with a £1,000 deposit, followed by 50% of the remaining balance in, I think it's March, and then 50% of the remaining balance in August. And if you want specific details on each of those fee options, just send me an email, and I'll do everything I can to answer your questions. So you complete the registration form. We will come back to you. The admissions team will come back to you within 3 working days. It's normally a lot more prompt than that, normally within hours. We then, in due course, as we approach the start of the program, we send you the primer on banking to get you up to speed, to get everybody up to speed and starting from the same platform. You receive a full set of course materials and textbook books before the start of the program. There are 5 modules, each lasting approximately just over a month, but they do vary from one module to another. Lectures, online seminars, and student faculty forum. It's called the BTRM forum. This is incredibly active. You can use this forum either to ask questions of the faculty or to ask questions of all the other students studying from around the world to see if they would know the answer as well. You can share news stories on the forum with everyone else around the world. You can share what's going on at the moment in the US. You can compare it with what's going on at the moment in the UK, in Europe, in Asia. What are the different regulations for each region, and so on. It's a really useful forum, and it's very well used. There is an online test at the end of each module, and this is really for us to make sure that you're on the right track. Okay, so this isn't a test which determines whether you're going to be kicked out or not. This is a test to determine your current level of knowledge, so that if you need help, if you're below the threshold, if you like, then we will do everything we can to help you get up to speed. Okay, and we'll focus in particular on your areas of weakness, so that we can increase your knowledge in those areas, so that you're up to speed and on the same level as everybody else doing the program. There is then a 3-hour unseen written exam at the end of the program. If you get 60% or higher, you have passed. If you get 80% or higher, you receive a distinction. And if you're the lucky, hard-working soul who achieves the top mark globally, you receive the Wiley Award. Okay. Okay, so how much is the discount if 2 people from one bank attend the BTRM program? So again, that's a really good question, and that is up to the commercial department. I think the thing to do, if you send me an email with exactly that question, then I'll have a chat with the commercial director and I'll let you know exactly what the discount is for the two of you to enroll.
Okay, thank you.
Pleasure, my pleasure. We're fully accredited by the Association of Corporate Treasurers. So this is the main association for this topic area in the world. And it took us about 9 months to get accredited by them. It was an incredibly intense process, an enjoyable process as well, because we learned a little bit about ourselves, as well as about the Association of Corporate Treasurers as a body. We are partners with the Association of Corporate Treasurers. So we work very much in tandem with one another. We support one another's programs as well. We very much support their programs. They support ours. We've got another meeting with them next week to talk about mutual support for one another's events taking place and webinars taking place. They're a phenomenal organization, really well organized, and great to work with. So we're extremely proud to be working with them. Well worth taking a look at their website, because there's a lot of information on their website. We are also accredited by the Chartered Institute for Securities and Investment. As I say, Ed is a fellow of the Chartered Institute for Securities and Investment, as is Moorad Choudhry, as are other faculty members as well. And we are accredited by the American Bankers Association. We are hoping to run an event with them later on this year, probably in June. We're hoping to run this event. It's going to be probably a 2-day event. That's all I can say about that at the moment, but I'm very, very excited about it. Jill Satina, who's with us, she's also working with us and with the American Bankers Association to put something in place. So hopefully we can announce something in due course. Okay, testimonials are really important. I'll read a couple of them out. I really liked the way that one would learn something at a lecture and then go back to the office and apply it the next day to the day job. It was that practical and relevant, of course, for practitioners. This was a delegate working at Santander. That, to be honest, that really sums this course up. I think the reason why we've put this quote as the first one is because it reflects exactly what the course is about. Another quote: I have found it hugely helpful in my role at work and have learned a huge amount about the Treasury discipline. The way the course was administered really worked for me, very flexible, interactive and practical when combining with a day job. The content was very in-depth, the tutors very responsive and knowledgeable. A comprehensive exploration of both theory and market practice. I couldn't recommend the course more highly to potential students. This was a director at Barclays working in Treasury. These testimonials are not guided by us, right? As testimonials are generally not. Orhan, I'll come to your question in a second. These are simply testimonials that are volunteered by BTRM graduates, so they are truthful. So these are really, true reflections as to their experiences of the course. Okay, how are the tests at the end of each module structured? They're multiple choice tests. Okay, so they're not written. The written examination comes at the end of the program, and that's a 3-hour written exam, which you can do on your desktop. It is timed, and you can do it on your desktop.
Right, thank you.
Pleasure. Okay, program delivery. Have the potential impact of AI on current and future learning and profession? Are there any perceived specific impacts to risk management and to value of the course, or will this be part of a topic on the course? It's a good question, Leo, and I'm not have the potential impact of AI on current and future learning and profession. Are there any perceived specific impacts to risk management and to value of the course? I don't think there are, because they would have done something about it. I mean, they're extremely active, the BTRM board. I don't quite understand the question before the.
Sorry, yeah. So I was just reforming about potentially have people, has that been a consideration for this course, and maybe have people thought of if there's anything specific? Obviously AI is thrown out there, you can't get through a meeting without it coming up somewhere along the line, and I just sort of thought I would throw it out there to see your thoughts on it. I'm not expecting you to have a definitive answer. I just thought I'll throw it out there and see if that's something that's been thought about, obviously, over the last year or so.
Look, it's definitely been thought about, and we've run webinars which include AI in the topic, you know, the topic areas of those webinars. But it is very different to the subject matter at hand on this program, which is Treasury. You know, if AI does have a huge impact, or even some impact on Treasury, then I suspect that the faculty, you know, including Ed, including Chris Westcott, Moorad Choudhry, Jill Satina, Claire Trithall, you know, they'll all put their heads together and incorporate it in the syllabus. But I don't think, for the time being, I just don't think it's, you know, AI is more to do with, you know, WBS Training run other programs like the AIFI course, AI Finance Institute program, the Machine Learning Institute program. These are major courses of which AI is a significant part. But for this area, Treasury, ALM, bank balance sheet management, there's not going to be too much AI involved in that. How technical do we get with the balance sheet forecasting, building, stress testing, regulatory reporting? Some might not be applicable, so please feel free to address it. So I think we should be able to answer that question, Max, on the next slide, which is where Ed is going to take over from me to give you a detailed breakdown of the syllabus. But just very quickly, so the way this works is there is a dedicated BTRM online forum, which I've already talked about. You've got your live lectures. All the lectures are recorded. Class slides you have access to, real world exercises and case studies, sample templates and spreadsheet models, ad hoc webinars, which I've talked about already, and lifelong learning library, which includes all the webinars that we've done to date and all the future webinars as well, masterclasses and so on. But in order to answer your question, Max, I'll take you on to the next slide. I'll hand you over to Ed, and very quickly, Laurent, how does the course accommodate for different regulatory requirements based on jurisdiction? I'm especially interested in the US requirements, but hope for mostly best practices that would apply worldwide. Hopefully we'll be able to answer that over the next few slides. Okay, Ed, over to you.
Thank you for that elegant introduction, Jeff, and background, which I found very compelling personally. So here's the framework as previously outlined by Jeff. 23 weeks of lectures, followed by the final written exam, preceded by the pre-course module, which involves a primer on banking. I think Moorad is very good about delivering some of the basics, fundamentals of banking, which we sometimes forget, but are key to understanding the dynamics as we move through the different modules. So you can see how it's divided into our 5 modules here. Sorry, this print is a little bit small, so I'm just zooming a little. Starting with bank balance sheet risk management and all the aspects around that, its fundamentals, forming the core of what we are to learn later, because balance sheet risk management, based on our experiences, is critical, to our later understanding. We left ahead one slide. Okay, thanks. And then following on from that, looking very importantly at the Treasury operating model, which again might be something that easily could be taken for granted, but is very important for proper functioning of the Treasury within the bank and the governance associated with that. Each of these, of course, is followed by your online multiple choice test in order to embed the concepts. In Module 3, we get into strategic ALM and financial markets, where we have, again, practitioners speaking who have been involved in these markets throughout their career and can bring the strategic focus to our understanding. Then wrapping up with modules 4 and 5 around, very importantly, liquidity risk. Again, Chris Westcott I found to be very eloquent in describing his experience at RBS and other institutions. And finally, module 5, bank capital management, where we explore aspects around ICAP and ILAP and so on in very technical terms. Just to address that question earlier about how technical do we get, I would say quite technical, coming to techniques around balance sheet risk management, regulatory reporting, and so on. And I would say what we're aiming for really is best global practice. A lot of our examples come from the UK, given our experience, but we do touch on US requirements as well, and we have expertise there, but approaching things more from a global perspective, I would say. And then moving into the next modules one by one. Okay, we have further breakdown here. ALM divided into 2 sections from a strategic viewpoint, and then more specifically around various banking products. We spent a lot of time on Basel III, the capital and liquidity rules and implications around best practice. Then ALM trading and hedging, where we have experts who have been involved in these areas in the money markets. We have a bit of a simulation game, which can be instructive and entertaining in terms of looking at a model bank, if you will, and trying to come up with the optimal ALM management. Following on from that, interest rate risk management in greater detail for the banking book, and turning to even more technical subjects like hedge accounting and macro hedge accounting. In Module 2, the operating model and risk management governance, laying out best practice in terms of operating model and reporting lines, very much involving the board of the bank in these activities. Asset and liability management 3, involving charters and discussing the results of the ALM simulation game. I get more involved in Module 9 myself, ALCO and credit risk management, session 9, which covers aspects of loan loss provision policy, integrating ALM liquidity and credit into stress testing, then moving on to the role of the Asset and Liability Committee, implications of IFRS 9 and hedge accounting, outlining some basic principles there. So you can see we delve into a fair amount of detail into each of these topics in order to inform and educate and be able to apply these in terms of best practice. Module 3, focusing on strategic ALM and financial markets. Peter Eisenhardt has been very adept at laying out capital market disciplines for bank issuers around instruments contributing to additional Tier 1 and Tier 2 capital, secured and unsecured debt. We cover securitization in a fair amount of detail, given its relative complexity and how it has emerged as important assets in the past for banks, how these can help in your balance sheet management process. Recovery plan and resolution, unfortunately, has to be a part of all this because of past experience. We have trained experts who have been directly involved in recovery and resolution planning, which can bring their insights to bear. Session 13, again, Jill and I get involved in investor relations and the credit rating process, having worked at credit rating agencies ourselves, outlining the process for that and the important aspects of managing your investors in terms of that relationship. Moving on to Module 4, the penultimate, involving bank liquidity risk management, 1 and 2 and 3, where Chris Westcott, again, as I mentioned earlier, shares his expertise based on not always favorable experience at entities like RBS and others, but we've learned important lessons from all that, covering quite technical aspects too, like post-crash swap discounting and pricing techniques, various risk metrics. We have an expert in XVAs who shares his experience and expertise in that area, along with collateral management. And then I know it's one of Moorad's favorite topics, funds transfer pricing, FTP, and constructing the internal funding curve. Again, bringing additional experts into the discussion around that important process within the Treasury and overall bank. We move from the internal funding curve discussion into further internal funds transfer pricing aspects and funding policies emanating from that. Liquidity risk management 4, you can tell how seriously we take the liquidity risk aspect, given its contribution to unsuccessful banks in the past and the importance going forward, involving liquidity reporting, stress testing, ILAP, intraday liquidity and asset encumbrance policies, getting quite technical, I would think, in terms of best practice. And then collateral management, covering bilateral margin rules, central clearing for OTC derivatives, and the impact of these, which we see as an interesting development in terms of that section of the market. And the last module, Module 5, Bank Capital Management, 1 and 2, talking about capital structure and planning, very important for banks, covering corporate finance concepts such as the cost of capital and how to optimally allocate that capital. In the second phase, outlining capital strategy and in quite a detailed fashion, I would say, the ICAP process, which practitioners like Chris Westcott and others have gotten intimately involved with, reverse stress testing as well. Ending up then with the last session, 23, operational risk and principles of policy documentation, where again, we have experts in this area who have been doing this for decades in order to outline principles of policy documentation, equally important in terms of the best practice. And that, in a nutshell, covers the syllabus. I will also point out that the faculty does include highly esteemed authors, as Jeff has pointed out. This is just a small sample of textbooks authored by members of BTRM's faculty. Moorad has been extremely prolific in his publications. Principle of Banking has been a classic. As he likes to say, the first principle of banking is to have principles. So we're not leaving the ethical side untouched either. And he's also a great proponent of the soft skills. None of this would work without proper teamwork. And this comes up again and again throughout the curriculum. It's not just the technical aspects, but the wider picture that has to be taken into account in order to make everything work effectively. Paulina Bardeva has written a tome on bank asset liability management best practice. Michael Einhorn, as well, our expert in reverse stress testing. Beata in ALM optimization, providing a practitioner's guide. So from this short list, you can gauge how widely esteemed the faculty are, not only as practitioners, but also touching on academics very strongly as well. I myself straddled the two. I've been a practitioner for a long time, but I also teach at Middlesex University and other institutions in a more academic sense. So just before I wrap up on the syllabus, I'd also like to emphasize that it's continually updated. We are taking new developments into account. I know Moorad's been thinking heavily around artificial intelligence and other recent innovations and how that fits in. We communicate as a community, not just with the students through the excellent BTRM forum, where we try to be as responsive and comprehensive as possible, but also among ourselves as colleagues, learning from each other. I've learned an awful lot through this program myself out of my more restricted area of credit risk. As Jeff has pointed out, it's eminently applicable. Being a CFA, I agree with the sentiment that CFA tends to be a somewhat broader coverage, if you will, but this is quite focused and unique in that respect in preparing practitioners for ALM and its various technical aspects. There are webinars, as Jeff mentioned, also frequently offered, and more recently, newsletters being written by our practitioners and participants, which are also available and informative. So on that note, I guess I'll wrap up and look forward to entertaining further questions after the presentation.
Superb. Thanks very much, Ed. That was very clear. And yeah, if anyone has any questions about the syllabus, then fire away. And in the meantime, the BTRM alumni support is absolutely vital, I think. If you want to find out more about this program from BTRM alumni, from your region, from your organization, whatever it might be, then just send me an email. And I don't select alumni. So if you want to speak to alumni, for example, from Santander, I will send you everybody from Santander who's ever done the program. Because the reason I do this is because when I came on board a couple of years ago, I made it my mission to speak to everyone who's ever done the program. And the feedback, so the reason why I wanted to do this was to find out what improvements could be made to the program. That was my objective. You know, to find out what criticism there were so that we could react to those criticisms. But the feedback was almost unanimously exceptional. It really was. It was absolutely thrilling. So what I do now is when potential delegates ask for alumni details to contact for feedback, I just send a lot through. And without any selective preference whatsoever. So if you do want to get in touch with alumni, just send me an email and then I'll send you their email addresses. Okay, there is also, okay, I will do that as I has no problem. What I'll do is if I'm going to get a list of everyone who's attended this event, either this evening or tomorrow morning. So I'll send all of you a copy of this presentation slide deck so that you can go through it in your own time. The study partner program is very, very simple. If you want to study with somebody from your own country, then send me an email. You know, once you've enrolled, then send me an email and I'll put you in touch with hopefully people, if they've enrolled from your country, similarly from your organization. You know, if there's somebody or more than one person enrolling from your organization, I will happily put you in touch with their permission. So a question from Max quickly. Edward mentioned INAP reverse stress testing, recovery, ETC, which are all risk-focused topics. Is it correct to assume that it's mostly introductory, or you get into the planning and executing the actual exercise, especially when it comes to developing stress testing and applying it to a bank's balance sheet? Will do, Gustavo. Ed, could you answer Max's question?
Sure, I'll make an attempt. Sorry, the lights in my room have gone out. I apologize for that. It is quite detailed in terms of the background. So there is an introductory aspect to it, but in my experience observing Chris and others delivering these, they do get into a fair amount of detail around the planning and execution, best practice, lessons learned, key takeaways to actually implement in a practical sense for yourselves and your own organizations, particularly around what I've seen on ICAP and ILAP. I think that provides an excellent foundation along with comprehensive additional detail. On stress testing, having seen that a few times, I confess perhaps it's a little more introductory and general, but gives certain parameters which I think will be found very useful when you begin to implement that within your own organization.
Superb. Okay. Good stuff. Okay, so that's the study partner program, and the alumni support desk is the same as the BTRM forum. Okay, it's very, very active. It's a great way to network with everybody else doing the program around the world. It's an amazing support tool for asking questions, which will be answered by faculty very promptly. And yeah, it's really, really good. Okay. Any more questions? Any more questions at all from anybody? How is the course of relevance to someone who is working in the research department of a commercial bank but wants to move to ALM or balance sheet management? Ed, can you help out with that?
Well, I think it's a perfect starting point, really, because I mean, in some topics there is some degree of prior knowledge which would be useful, but personally, if I were contemplating such a move, working full-time in ALM or balance sheet management, I regard this as the perfect preparation for that because it is so comprehensive. It shares the experience of people who have been involved in the industry for a long time and have developed considerable experience. So I don't think, personally, Jeff earlier mentioned the uniqueness of the program. I don't think you could find a better preparation for that sort of activity than this very program.
Yeah, I agree. And I should also talk about the employment service that we run, because that may be useful to you, Mohammed. Just to emphasize, the employment service is specifically for self-funded delegates. Okay, so even if you're funded 5% by your employer, we obviously can't help you at all. It's self-explanatory because we don't want to help you to move to another organization from the organization who funded you through this program. So it is incredibly comprehensive. I'm responsible for this department. I've been involved in recruitment since January 2008. I thoroughly enjoy it because in this day and age, helping somebody to get a job is thrilling. When that actually happens, it is really thrilling. We start with your CV. We make sure your CV is absolutely up to scratch. It needs to be ahead of the field of all the other 50, let's say, applicants who are going up for the same role. So how do we get your CV to be noticed by the recruitment officer or the desk head who has to sift through all of these CVs? The next step is the interview process, which we provide very strong guidance as far as that's concerned. Again, you need to get ahead of the other candidates that are going to be competing with you for this role. So if there's 3 or 4 other candidates that have been shortlisted, how do we make sure that you are ahead of those other candidates? And the simple solution is to do much more work and research for that role than the other candidates. And there are very, very effective ways of doing that, which the other candidates will not necessarily do, which includes contacting those who are working in that role for another bank. Okay, and we can help you to do that by putting you in touch. You know, if you're going up for a role as a Treasury specialist or ALM specialist at I don't know, Bank of America Merrill Lynch, we can help you to find out how that role operates and also how it operates within the desk as a whole by putting you in touch with somebody who's working in that role for another bank. There are all sorts of ways. You need to do as much reading and research as possible, not only around the role, but also how does the role fit into the desk as a whole? What's the function of the desk within the organization as a whole? What's the organization's objectives? What are their strategies to meet those objectives? Who are the organization's competitors? What are they doing in relation to Treasury that this organization is not doing, which might enable you to give even some advice to the desk head that is going to be interviewing you, there's a lot that you can do. So we help comprehensively as far as that's concerned. We also put you in touch with, we've got a huge network of contacts in this space for obvious reasons. We can help a hell of a lot as far as that's concerned. At what time do the weekly lectures take place? This is usually, it does vary, but I would say 5:30, 6 o'clock GMT in the evening. So 5:30 p.m., 6 p.m. GMT. What is the deadline to submit the application form? Well, if you're, in order to take advantage of the 15% discount, the deadline is the 14th of February. Okay, so 14th of February in order to take advantage of the 15% discount. And again, send me an email if you want me to let you know the different payment options as well. The 3 different payment options. 1, you submit the full fee up front. 2, you do it in 2 installments. 3, you do it £1,000 to begin with, followed by 2 installments of the remaining balance, 50% of the remaining balance each. What are the payment plans at the end? We will receive BTRM certificate and Northwestern Switzerland. Yes, both. It is like a dual degree. The payment plans, so as I said, if you send me an email, I'll be able to explain clearly what the payment plans are, and the times that you need to submit each installment. Okay, I think it's basically the one where you submit 2 installments is you submit half now, half in, I believe it's June, but again, not absolutely sure on that. And then the one where it's 3 installments, it's £1,000 now, followed by 50% of the remaining balance in March. In June, followed by 50% of the remaining balance in August. The start date for the next BTRM cohort is Wednesday, 9th of April 2025, correct? While we can accept registration forms up until the course begins, we highly encourage submitting them as soon as possible to ensure everything is in place, correct? If you'd like to take advantage of the early bird discount, it's best to act sooner rather than later, correct? For those who missed the early bird opportunity, we're happy to explore regional discounts where applicable. We recommend submitting your application as soon as possible to give you ample time to prepare. Absolutely. Jay, thanks very much. Jay is one of my colleagues working with me. So very, very eloquent answer on that one. Okay. Any more for any more? We've had about 2 minutes under 1 hour for this presentation. So, which is good timing. Does anybody have any more questions about any aspect of the BTRM program? How many lectures occur per week, and how would you approximate the number of hours needed outside lectures to keep up or stay ahead? Brilliant question. Absolutely brilliant question. So there are on average 2 lectures a week, sometimes 1, sometimes 3. The number of hours needed outside lectures to keep up or stay ahead. So I actually, the way I would approach this, and the way I have approached this when it comes to studying other programs, is you're only going to you only ever go through an educational program once. You don't do a degree twice, you don't do a master's twice, 6-month intense program, you don't do that twice either. So even though you probably have a full-time job, and many people who go through this program have full-time jobs, make the most of this opportunity by sacrificing some of your social life and doing as much work as you possibly can. Because that way, by the end of the 6 months, the knowledge and skill set acquired will be immense, the more work you do. There's no specified number of hours. Just do as much as you possibly can, okay? I know some of you have family lives to deal with as well. I'm a parent myself. I know how that works, where you've got work commitments. and you need to look after your kids, and you're studying at the same time. But what I would say is that the BTRM is a really enjoyable program because it's very applied. It is honestly a really enjoyable program. So it makes it that much easier to put in the hours and to do as much studying as possible. You know, if I was to come up with an average number of hours, Laurent, I would say, including lecture times, 10. But I think if you study 10 hours per week and you come to the end of the 6 months, you may have regrets that you haven't done enough. Because if you're able to do more than 10 hours, which includes lecture times, by the way, then you'll be that much more fulfilled and less regretful by the time you reach the end of the program. You won't be thinking, if only I could have done a bit more work on that module because my understanding of it isn't quite there, you know. Having said that, you can watch the recordings of the lectures as well. Okay, so even by the time you get to the end of the program, if there are certain knowledge gaps that you feel you have, you can, it's no problem to watch the recordings and to talk to faculty. You can still talk to faculty after the program. That's not a problem. Do you offer a light or abridged version of the BTRM for those in need of the essential skills but not intense training? We don't, unfortunately. No, we don't. I don't think that would be fair, actually, to offer a light version because it simply wouldn't be enough. This is a really, really important topic area. We've had banks collapsed as a result of not knowing enough, you know, about the regulations and about everything really to do with Treasury and bank balance sheet management. There have been bank collapses as a result of that. So it wouldn't be responsible of us to do a light version of it. Any more questions? And incidentally, if any questions pop up in the coming hours and days and weeks, again, you've got my email address, just in case you haven't. Let me type it out again. These are my 2 email addresses. Okay. You should also have my contact number because I sent an email prior to about half an hour before this session. So feel free to contact me as well. If you're worried about the cost, you can call me on WhatsApp. My WhatsApp number is that. Okay, it's a French number. Look, I hope this has been really useful and I hope it's given you a flavour of what this is all about and what kind of experience you can expect to go through. I hope it's been informative and yeah, any other questions? Thank you, Laurent. Any other questions, just feel free to get in touch with me whenever you want. All the best. Enjoy the rest of your days and speak to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Thanks a lot. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Ed. Thanks, everyone.
Pleasure.